Well, here we are, episode 6 of the Chase Merrell Podcast. I am joined today by my friend, and I would call in lots of other things, and I will get into that. But my friend is probably the most important title. Jordan Abina. Welcome, Jordan Abina, to the Chase Merrell Podcast.
This is an honor, Chase. It's good to be on the Chase Merrell Podcast. If I would have gotten the purple light memo, I would have changed my backdrop. I'm sorry. This is a green screen, and I typed in cool background. For guys on Pinterest.
For guys, for sure. Yeah, if I would have got the like historic French brick memo, I would have definitely figured out a way to get one of a background from Amazon to make sure we match there for sure too.
And I wore this shirt just in case you needed any financial advice, because I'm one of I obviously work at a bank part-time and have information on that, which I don't, but that's why I wore this shirt, because
for sure.
I'm older now.
Yeah. And you're great with finances, all that. I appreciate that, man. I need help.
You know that.
I need help.
Yeah.
Man, you're here today because of the podcast I've been doing. Is this first year of it is something I'm calling the 52 Project, and it's 52 people who've made an impact on my life and who are still making an impact on the world, in the world around them. And you've made an impact in my life, not only from formidable years as a 8th grader. I think it's where we met. I was an 8th grader when we got our first introduction. Isn't that nuts?
Oh, crap.
And I think you had. I don't know if you were still a senior in high school when I was in 8th grade, or if you started first year of internship when I was a freshman. I can't remember. I think you maybe started intern year 1 when I was in 8th grade, and that's where it all started. But and we're gonna go there for a second. But we've maintained a friendship since then, and throughout those years, you've just been one of the realest people in my life because of your love for the Lord, but also your very gifted and creative way of being yourself and growing in that and investing that who you are in people. You've invested that in me, and there's lots of things I'll say about you as we go, but that's part of where we started. Can you tell us where you are right now, just so the people that are listening and they can't see the super cool aesthetics behind you? No, like you're not, we're not obviously in the same room. We're on over the internet, over Zoom, but where are you at?
Yeah. Donc, en français, je suis là, la cave. But in English, this is basically like a French version of a basement, but they call it a cave, or la cave. And it's beneath our apartment, which is not an apartment traditionally. It's basically an old French house that they split into 2. So there's someone above us and there's someone below. And then this is like the
so
basement.
you're in a basement.
Grenoble, France.
Sorry, say it again.
But it's in Grenoble, France.
Grenoble, France. So wait, you're in a basement, but you have somebody living underneath you.
No.
Oh, okay.
There's someone who lives on they would say the first floor, but there's only basically 2 floors to the apartment. So we live on the first floor, and then I'm here, and then there's someone who lives up here.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So, and we have a time difference, and
I'm your future. I am in your future right now. So I have lived this day, 7 hours of this day, and you haven't yet. So this is a huge opportunity to get some information about what's coming.
Yeah, like what's the market? What's the market looking like?
Oh, it's green, baby.
Get crypto market.
Sell. Yeah. So, oh boy, you want to get that Doge right now. Trust me,
Lord.
Yeah. So I'm 9 hours ahead.
Yeah. So Grenoble, France, and like a quick snapshot before we kind of do a throwback to where our relationship started. But just a quick snapshot. Why are you in Grenoble right now? What are you doing? Who are you with?
So I'm here with AG World Missions. That's who's launched us to be here. And my wife and I pastor a church here in Grenoble, kind of has an international flavor, although it's very unique because we speak French and English at the same time. So we translate everything. Either sometimes it's French to English or vice versa. And then we're in the process, and what are we, January? So in a couple of weeks here, opening a coffee shop, which is about five minutes walk from our place. And it's a nonprofit coffee shop. So we'll be giving those profits, which will be tons
For sure.
of,
Let's go.
dude, because I'm expecting us to just dominate. You know why? Because I bought the coffee machine at like a appliance store. You just press a button. But we're opening that. It's a nonprofit, so we're trying to give those things back to Grenoble, and then we also use it as a place of a ministry base. So we have different things there, and we've been hosting these 24-hour prayer gatherings there, which have been awesome. So
Yeah.
that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Enjoying it.
Who are you with? Like who's with you personally?
So my wife, Vanessa, and I have 3 kids. June is 12, dude.
Jeez.
And then Jadwin, my son, he's 11, and Joss is 7. So, yeah. Wow.
No, I'm 12.
12, going on like 19, and
Yeah.
pray for us, dude. Pray. I didn't grow up with any sisters or anything, so every other day when something happens, I'm looking at Vanessa like, are we good? Like, this is, just go like this if it's normal, like you've been through this. And she's like,
Yeah.
okay, because I'm going to go cry. Jadwin, I understand.
Yeah.
Caveman to caveman, like
Yeah.
simple language there.
Yeah.
But the female species, that's a whole complicated issue.
Oh, bro. Yeah, and I mean, obviously outnumbered with the 3 women in the house. That's oh gosh, it's good. The
But
Lord,
they're awesome.
yeah, they
Teach
are.
me so many things through daughters.
Yeah. We'll jump more into that world as in the next bit here, especially, the stuff that God has called you guys to and what you're presently doing. But just a quick throwback. So like, coming in for me as a middle school student to this, I moved to Rockland from Mammoth Lakes in the eastern side of the Sierra Nevadas in California, 5-6 hours away. Coming in fresh, and there's this youth ministry I found on a website. My parents were like, "Hey, we know you're angry. We moved, but you got to find we got to find a church." Is
that really how you found it?
Yeah. And,
That's awesome.
They were, because I was so angry because I had just had a ton of great friends and I was so pumped about living where I was. And they're like, all right, hey, you can choose the church. At least we go check out. And so I jump on the internet as a 8th grader can, and maybe does at that time. And the only church that had a website for their youth ministry was this church called Sunset Christian Center. And the youth ministry website was called Detour. And I was like, if they have a website, like, this has got to be dope.
This is dope. After you waited 5 minutes for dial-up to connect, you're like, this site is sick.
And they went as like God bless Kim and Dave Leatherman, who they will be guests on some point this year as well.
Nice.
And I'll have to talk about this. But the website was as like cringe and cliche to literally a detour, like a construction detour sign as you could possibly. Everything around it was banners of like, like, don't go this. I mean, it was like that. So,
You're
but I was
welcome,
like,
Chase. You're welcome for that. Okay, that's awesome.
So we went, and I freaking hated it. There was just kids were jumping, like during worship, jumping up and down the front, and like they were just weirdos. And I sat in the back being like, we'll never come back here. And then I went down, found my parents, and they're like, what'd you think? And I was like, nope. And like, well, we really enjoyed it. So
What'd you think?
We're gonna come back. And we kept coming back, and they kept making me go. And then I went to this winter camp. And I actually on the last episode talked to Riley about this winter camp. John Bohr, I think, was the speaker, actually, if I remember right. And I think
from Vegas.
He was
from Vegas at the time, I think.
Yeah. And you had to be there because it was 8th grade, February, my 8th grade year, which would have been 2005. And I think, what year did you graduate high school?
2004.
Okay. So you had started year 1 of the internship. You were the origin to interns for Kyle Marcia at that point. Never had the program. You guys were let's try this thing out. And I remember you made, I don't know if that wasn't Grow or Die, was it? Where did you make, do you remember that?
I think I made Grow or Die, yeah, but I don't I don't remember when, but it probably was because it was probably the first thing I ever got to do.
Yeah. I remember that imagery that's connected to my memories of that snow camp or winter camp. So
That's funny.
yeah, so that, and then that camp, that's where like I had a collision with the Lord for the first time in my life for real. Like gave my heart to Jesus for real, baptized in the
Chase,
Spirit.
that was almost 20 years ago.
You're right, dude. Holy crap. Oh man.
Almost 20, dude.
Whew.
Okay, cool.
So
yeah, grow or die.
yeah, grow or die. So, once I like gave my heart to the Lord for real and was like, oh, I'm all in. Like I want to be in ministry. I felt like God called me to ministry. I met Holly that night and it was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna marry her, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah. Part of that was last episode, what Riley and I talked about, just how incredible the youth ministry was and how Kyle and Marcia led something that was just so uncommon. And part of what contributed to that in large part was the people that they were leading and like the leaders that they had. And you and Vanessa were the start of those leaders. And you very much so drew me to being into that place more and more and more, because I just thought at the time, like, this dude is like, he's legit, he's cool, I want to be like him, and probably unhealthily too much so on the on the annoying middle school, high school side of things. But thought to myself, if this dude can give part of his life to this stuff, this must be legit. Like, why, he could be doing something else, but he's here. And that was the start. So then you were there all my 8th grade going into freshman, and then freshman year before you guys went off to Bible college for a little bit.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But then you came back pretty quick from Bible college to lead the middle school ministry. And when we reconnected there.
Yeah, that's right. We were there for 2 years as interns when we went to Sierra College, which was the best.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
Riley and I both remembered, I was like, dude, we finished like 6 units. He's like, I only finished 3.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, talk about grow or die. That's just die. Sierra College. It's 13th grade. It's hard. It's so rough to be motivated, especially because I Love Teriyaki is right across the street.
Oh yeah.
Man, I would eat there like every day, and I had to make some life choices. Just like, wow, I can't afford this. This isn't healthy, but this is so good. This is so good. It's so much better than sitting in whatever class. Brutal. But yeah, so then we did that, and then we went away for 2 years. But then during the last year of school, we were driving back from Santa Cruz every weekend. That was fun.
Yeah.
Saying it now makes it sound crazy, but at the time, someone was paying us to do youth ministry. I was like, oh, we tricked them. This is the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was wonderful.
Yeah. And then you came back and led the same exact ministry that I came into for, that first time when I found it on the website, that middle school detour, junior high ministry.
Yeah. And I think, so while I was an intern though, I got to lead worship in detour at some point.
That's right.
So I don't know if you were in there yet, but there was a season where I got to be worship leader in there with other junior hires and adults, and that was a blast. And that was really where I cut my teeth on music in general. My memories back on being a junior high leader, things just the absolute best. I would do it again in a heartbeat. In fact, my daughter's 12. So her friends are all these junior hires, right? So her birthday was just a few months ago, and she was like, I want to have my friends over and we'll go laser tag. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like this. She's like, okay, Dad, like don't. I'm like, okay, June, trust me. Your friends are going to think me and your mom are so dope that it's going to shock you. And sure enough, we just had the best time. It blew my daughter's mind. But it was like the first time we got to be back with junior hires in a long time. So much so I wore like this wolf shirt to the laser tag with their friends. And like by the end of the night, I had her friends that were on my team in different parts. And if I howled, they would all howl. Yeah. It was blowing my daughter's mind. And she was like, at first embarrassed, but then she was like, oh, it was awesome. And same with Vanessa, like, Vanessa's so good with people. And so those years of junior high, was so fun. And
Yeah.
just, I love junior high students
Yeah.
of that age in general.
Yeah.
It's the best. I still do.
Yeah. Yeah. That made me think about a mission trip we went on to Mexico. My freshman year, so we went in 2005, 2006. And that's you, you have your ability to rally people in any situation or moment to do literally anything. And it's like that was the coolest thing we've ever done. Like that kind of thing happened so many times throughout my high school experience, that throughout when you were a part of that, whether it was like, hey burrito, whether it was just some
Dude.
kind of like, everybody, like you started talking about Mountain Dew, like it was that good, and it is. But and then next thing I knew, everybody was drinking Mountain Dew,
No, the
unhealthy
best.
amounts.
It was an experiment though in junior high, because in junior high they're so moldable
Yeah.
that we were teaching them, like, part of the reason why your faith journey is so important now is you get to decide, right? Like
Right.
you can decide this for yourself, but you're so easily influenced. And I told our junior high leaders we had like probably named it. We name everything back then. It's like, oh, we're doing this thing, needs a name.
Yeah.
So this probably had a name. And I told a group of junior high leaders, for the next few months, I'm going to insert a few words into the vocabulary of our youth group. So we're going to come up with like a word for cool. I don't know if you remember this, and it was the word slowkey.
Yes.
Slowkee. Slowkey. I just made it up on the spot to prove to them that sometimes the things that we adopt in our life, somebody's doing it on purpose,
Yep.
whatever it is you like or listen to, typical youth message. But it only took like 3 months. And I'll never forget, I was at a junior high Buljan middle school for like lunch with these kids, and someone I didn't know said Slowkey. And I was with one of the junior high students, I think it's Joseph, and I was like, I told you.
Dude.
Like, I told you this works. And they were buying shirts that said Slowkey. Yeah, this is the dumbest thing. And so, but then I told the youth group, I told them afterwards, and it was an amazing object lesson,
Yeah.
of like, be careful,
Yeah.
about what it is you're adopting into your space. But that age group is so fun, and probably everything. I haven't learned too many new things outside of that season there. Just they've evolved, and have grown. But we're still very much working on the things that we worked on when we were in junior high.
Yeah.
In some ways,
Yeah.
managing it differently. But
Yeah. The two, when I think about those years and being, because you were a leader in that ministry for me, and then at different moments really played not only a leader but like a mentor role, an older brother mentor role, and we were both led by the same leader and had him as a mentor, Kyle Marcia Bethke. And so we got some of their DNA in us, just as Christian leaders and pastors, which, there's several that have come out of their leadership throughout the years. But I think we Riley and I were talking about this last episode too. We had, I think, just a unique, because of how much they loved us. And I say us as in like you and Vanessa, Holly and I, and then Riley, they really made themselves available and poured into us. So we didn't just get like the Sunday night Kyle and Marcia youth pastors.
Mm-hmm.
We got so much more. And so there's a unique connection, I think, even there, that I have for the rest of my life with you, because we not only were in their ministry, but I also was led in under his leadership when I went back on staff for a little while too. But thinking about you over those years, one of the two of the biggest things that stand out, and two of the biggest things that made an impact on me was, I had never seen somebody at that point in my life. So I was raised in church, but not a Christian until that 8th grade camp, which you were at. But then over the next 4 or 5 years, as I was really being formed into learning how to be a Christian and a leader, you were around a lot of that too. And I'd never seen anybody follow Jesus and it be as fun, and like you weren't morphed into this, I don't know, but for lack of better terms, like prim and proper, like collared shirt, like I've got to, you
I've
always,
changed.
yeah, I see how things have gone now. No, you just always like, at any moment, I knew you could go right into a situation with a group of people that knew nothing about Jesus, that were cool, or just whatever, or even like in some bad stuff, and you were going to be like the most effective person to be around them for Jesus, because of your ability to be not this, story or a stereotypical kind of like what people thought Christians were like. I just never seen anybody do that. I'd never seen anybody be themselves like you were, but bring fun to this. Like following Jesus was fun, and then but you also gave it your all. Like it wasn't like you were half in and half out. And I think that's what drew me so much, was like, man, if following Jesus can look like this, and then I really do I want to learn more and be more a part of it. So that was one. And that's continued over the years. I've seen you that's you. You let who you are, uh, come through, but you let Jesus work on the stuff that he needs to work on, but you don't temper or stop the Jordan from coming out in the moments. And then just the very, pure, comedy side of how I tell Holly this, we've talked about this several times throughout our marriage. Because we do 20 question kind of things at times, and just whatever. And whenever we ask a question about who, if you needed to bring the funniest person on the planet that to this thing or something like that, and both of us have had it, but I've used it more. Our answer is you. My answer is always,
That's stupid.
dude. I know you probably you don't care, or you wouldn't think that, or you wouldn't receive that. But I'm like, because how I gauge it is like, in any situation, there's not a perfect scenario where that person is funny. It's like, it literally could be, we haven't slept for 2 nights on a missions trip or whatever, and everybody wants to kill everybody, but you're able to somehow say something or do something that is like, or like, you have it all teed up for you. You have the ability to go from nothing to it's all teed up, and you do it. And then how I also gauge it is the belly laughing. Like when I'm laughing so hard, I have to close my eyes and it's in my belly.
Stupid.
There's not another person. There's not a comedian. There's not a Kevin Hart. There's nobody else that I have watched and listened to that has given me the most belly laughs in my life than Jordan Abina.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah, I really, I'm thankful, because it's real. And man, that piece of that for me is, it's special because I know it's part of who you are, but it's how you live your life, and you don't take it all too seriously, and you see moments and with people to take moments to make memories. Like, I mean, I have a lot of those moments of memories with you along those sides. So those are some things that I just know I needed to communicate, because
I appreciate that. I'm thankful for that, and I appreciate those kind words. But the first thing you said about being a Christian and having fun, I think I didn't know the rules,
right?
And my leaders weren't putting any on me necessarily. They were emphasizing personal integrity, and character, and don't get me wrong, there was all kinds of many moments where there was a line and I crossed and okay, got to come back. I mean, not necessarily like too much, but for me, I didn't know these rules of youth group. I met Kyle Marcia, Vanessa and I were 17. I mean, they were 21 and 24. So
right.
I mean, they were very young too. So it was fun, and they were letting us learn freely and then be ourselves. What a blast, and what a shame it is for so many who have a picture of Christianity that means less of anything. Why would it be less of anything?
That's good.
If by less you mean like, okay, well, there are things that I can't do anymore. No, that's everything. Get married, get a job. There's going to be things you can do less of.
Right.
But they're for the blessing and benefit of those contracts or relationships and whatever. So, and ultimately, when it comes to walking with Christ, I think anything that Christ has ever asked me to do has ultimately been for my blessing. And I wouldn't say I knew that when I was 17, but now I do. So I like laughing. I like having fun. There's a way to do it that brings people in. There's a way to do it, tears people down. And, that's the balance of all that stuff. But yeah, because sometimes those moments can get out of hand. It's always the people who join you, isn't it? So like you'll be saying something funny and then here comes someone else and they're like, they want to add into it. And you're like,
no,
don't do that. Because I'm not actually wanting to hurt this person, but, or whatever. But yeah, I think that season was super great and it locked in some things for me and for you, I think.
Yeah, it did.
And I enjoy that. I enjoy laughing, and why wouldn't that be the case?
Right.
Not that everybody feels like they're a comedian. I don't, but I get around a certain group of people, and it's super fun. And I don't think that's what people expect. Also from them,
right?
Maybe church or people who should be the most normal people on the planet. I think Christians. I really do. I think they should be the most normal. Because if by normal you mean like the most human person to ever live is Christ, fully human, without sin. So he's a really good example, I think. And then, like Philippians 4 says, you can rejoice whenever you want. And then to let your reasonableness be known, and a lot of people aren't very reasonable, especially in our season of life. But there's some days though where I'm not super like into life or laughing, but hopefully on most days, I don't take things. I take whatever the Lord says pretty seriously. Everything else, it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Ask me in 10 years. I'm still too young to give anyone advice about life.
Well, you gave some and lived some, in that season for me. That, in large part even helped the trajectory of me stepping into, although I did not complete the internship and I quit early.
Oh man. How could you, dude?
We said this also last episode, but just the irony of, two of the people that probably would have been, pegged as like, oh yeah, for sure they'll do 2 years, there was only one person in the entire program at that point that only had did one, but I don't think there was anybody, maybe there was one or two, I can't remember, that quit or didn't complete, but how we quit 6 months in, and then we both ended up, even before some other, we both got jobs back at that same church, before any of those, maybe they might have been one, but I just was, we both were like, I don't know, maybe it was the right call, because those no, but that was a season that your life really helped that trajectory of like, man, these guys are going into full-time ministry. It wasn't just a 2-year quick hot internship and then off to whatever land. This is part of what God's forging and building into who we're called to be. And watching you guys do it as a couple was really incredible as well. I know it's something that I began to see those seeds sowed in me. Kyle Marcia were great examples, but they came as a couple. I watched you guys kind of like, date, be engaged, get married, and be doing it. So I'm like, I saw a picture of what could be for my life. And I'm like,
that's cool.
That's it. And that's really part of the path that obviously I followed in that. So, man, I had to share some of the origins of that, because, it goes along with 20 years is it's almost, that's it's gross to think about 20 years. So, I'd love to hear, part of the jump that you've made, because you guys were pastors in the church that we just talked about, but then Napa Valley. For how many years were you guys in Napa?
7.
Okay, 7 years. And you had a few different roles there and some different seasons, but something just began to stir. Can you just give me a little bit about where did the missions and missionary thing come from, and like how has the jump from living stateside your entire life to doing I'm literally going to move to a different country and immerse myself in it and live there for X amount of years, to do what God's called us to do as missionaries, pastors, etc. Like, where did it start, and like, how did you make the jump out? Just that kind of journey. Give me a little bit more into that.
Man, that's a hard one. Because if I truly think on where did it really start, when was it not started? You know, like if we're on this journey,
sure,
I can think of things when I was junior high pastor that set me up for a little portion of my life here. So besides the general answer of, you know, the Lord's at work from the beginning, I would say anytime I came back from a missions trip ever, minus a couple, I was like, I'll just go do that. It seems simpler for me. I'm not saying it is better or worse or anything, but to me, there was like less, in my perception, less hoops to jump through in order to do stuff. It was just fill need, and do that thing. But then I would come back to the States and get back to my life and enjoy it. So I think on this time in Napa, I oversaw missions there for the last season we were there, and some people here, Mark and Daleen, good, and they've been serving here for a while, and we supported them. And so I led a team from our church there to here. And I visited, and I was like, that same old, you know, like, oh man, like I could do that for sure. And looking and things like, oh wow, there's a lot of things that are built into me that I think could be a blessing. When we came back from that trip, my wife was with me, and she was like, I shared that. She was like, no. I mean, like, no more talking about it either. But she doesn't really ever feel that strongly about something. So I was just like, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And we kind of moved on. And so then I sent an email back to the people here, though, because I was like, well, we want to come back, take a different team. Now that I had seen it, I felt like we would be able to figure out how we could be a blessing a little bit easier. And they emailed us back and said, well, we wanted to know if you would come here for a year while we go back home for the States. Would you come and take over the church for a year? I was like, oh boy, I'm going to have to run this by someone, you know. Now we were full-time at the church as pastor, so it's not like we could just do that. So we talked about it with our pastor, and I was like associate pastor. And he was kind of on board with it. And but a year was too long, just even for our family. So we went for 3 months, our whole crew, and we came here in the summer. And it slows down in the summer a lot, so it wasn't too crazy. But while we were here, we really felt like the Lord's speaking to us about we could come if we wanted to. He would be here when we got here. So it wasn't that necessarily we were like hearing God close doors. Hey, you're done in Napa, and I have this thing for you. It was, this thing is here. If you want to be here, I'll be here, and we could do this together. Or when you get back to Napa, I got some great things for you there.
I think that, just to pause for a second, I think that's huge in regards to just how God can speak sometimes. Yeah. I think a lot of people, I'd love for you even to expound a tiny bit more on that, just because I think it's so huge. And I just think a lot of people have a misconception around that. Like sometimes like they're waiting and looking for that really, really, really clear one-way direction, audible voice of God kind of direction. But a lot of the time he really does have that, hey, I'll be in both. And I can bless both.
Yeah. But I think there are times where the God wants us to do something. There's biblical examples of that. No, this is what I want you to do.
Sure.
And if you don't do it, and you don't do it this way in this time, then you may be wandering around here for 40 years.
Yeah. Or even like the Jonah, like it's disobedience straight up. Like if you aren't going exactly where he's calling you, when he's calling you, you're in disobedience.
Exactly. And that's the point. Pastor Brett told me this a while ago. He said that God is on the other side of every door that doesn't require sin to walk through it.
Oof.
And I was like, that is good, my friend. And that makes sense.
Yeah. It's a
So
great line.
um, the God of the universe, the God of all adventure, he has things that we could step into, I think, and we should. But we didn't know. Felt like we wanted to for sure. But we also had a lot of great things back in Napa, things that we still mourn over that we're not a part of.
Yeah.
But, that kind of gets into the question of like, I have never thought about being a missionary ever in my life, and I still have trouble with it now. Like I came to terms with that people needed to call us that in order for us to like raise the funds and do the thing. But what do we mean? Because I live in a different country now? I mean, I suppose, but you call it whatever you want. I feel like for us, we've tried our best, not perfectly. Vanessa and I have tried our best to just say yes when we feel like the Lord is saying that we can or should do something. This was just one of those things. So made sense to no one, broke some hearts on the way, still have to navigate loving our family and taking the grandkids away, and very hard. But at the same time, we know for sure that the Lord asked us to come and do this. And so we did. And, we're learning the language, and very hard. But it's also a part of my personality. So like this idea of, we love that passage where, like God knows the desires of our heart. What I have discovered is God knows the desires of my heart that I don't know. So I think when we hear that verse, at least for me, I always think about, okay, well, God knows this thing that I want. Right. And I also know it.
Right.
But God knows this thing that I want, that I am not even there to know that I want that yet. Because I'm just not there.
Sure.
So like I was reading yesterday, like C.S. Lewis, where I was reading my wife got me this Bible that has all of C.S. Lewis's work scattered in it, depending on the passage that it relates to.
That's right.
It's awesome. Right. So yesterday I was reading from Matthew 20 something, 24 or 25, and they're trying to trap Jesus, and they're like, okay, well, these two were married, and then the husband died, and so the brother has to marry the wife, and it happens like 7 times. So at the resurrection, whose wife is this? And Jesus goes on to say, it's not even going to be like that. Like, there's not going to be marriage and things like that. And for us, we're like, we feel the shock of it. Like, what? Right. Like, we're not going to be married? Like, well, that's terrible news, And C.S. Lewis is like, it's like when you're talking to a child about one day you're going to be married, and it's like incredible, right? And it's from Mere Christianity. And he's like, the relationship, the intimacy, it's going to be great. And the kid's like, okay, yeah, but is there going to be chocolate? Like, will there be chocolate? And you're like, well, trust me, you're not even going to be thinking about chocolate. Like when you're in this amazing thing. But for the kid, his height of pleasure and enjoyment and what he knows and desires in this fictional example is chocolate. And so he goes, well, is there going to be chocolate? Yeah, I know you're saying this is great, but is there chocolate? And we do the same thing. Yeah. So it's going to be like this. And we're like, okay, but I'm going to have my wife though, right? Like I'm going to be married in heaven, right? And he's like, oh, you're not even going to be thinking about that, because this thing you have now is almost a supplement. It's a precursor to this great thing. So I think in this last season, I've learned that there are desires in my heart that I didn't realize. And from maturity, needing to learn things, just learning myself, allowing the Lord to maybe even put new desires in my heart. So, and coming here is, I think, really done that. I think that can happen wherever you are, though. But for our story, sure here, and I like it here. And it came at a right time, like in the political climate of the States. Like when we left, I was kind of like, see ya. Like I was disappointed on so many levels about so many things, especially from our tier of people, of not necessarily specific people, just Christians in general, and the things we were saying to each other. And so it was kind of a reprieve from that for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I could go on and on about those things, but I'll stop there, I guess.
The I think one of the things that a lot of people, if they begin to have like, whether it's jumping into being a missionary or something like that, or just another kind of pretty gigantic faith step that requires such a shift of lifestyle and a leaving of things that you're comfortable with. I think a lot of people have moments like that where whether they consider like God starts to speak or starts to stir, but just the thought of letting go of what you have
It's rough.
is rough, right? And it's got to be one of the biggest things that holds people back from actually making the jump because they're like, am I actually gonna like not live in my house that I bought that I've been waiting my whole life to finally buy? Am I actually gonna like only take 3 suitcases of whatever and whatever the cost is that people begin to actually go through to go, and so I just wonder how many people that even would be listening to this have had some kind of like seed deposit in at some point in their life, but they've let it lay dormant because the cost seemed to be too high. What would you say to that? Because you obviously had to consider that and still live in moments where I'm sure, like you said, you still are grieving, mourning things that you've left, to some degree, but maybe you are now seeing a greater, even maybe to the metaphor you just shared with the C.S. Lewis thing. What would you say to that to somebody that's like, man, I'm listening to this and I am remembering some of the things that God spoke about, but it just seems like what if I miss this here? Or what if I, just how would you encourage or challenge that person?
Yeah. It's the Bilbo Baggins thing. Tolkien does a beautiful job of expressing this because Bilbo has everything he wants. And the Hobbitans are all about their place and their food and their history, and that's what they like. And they do not want to be disturbed with any type of adventure. And then we have the Gandalfs and the people come into our life, and the whisper of the Holy Spirit saying like, I have more for you, and whether it be Peter coming out of a boat and then going back and then coming back out again, there's all kinds of stories of Christ speaking to the idleness, I think, and something that you find, and you've been to other places in the world, is the American dream is just an American dream. Not everybody has that dream. So everybody has different cultures have what's important to them. So the Americans rest so they can go back to work, and French people work so they can go back to rest. So it's reversal. So they vacation so well here, and there's school vacation every 6 weeks here. So that's wild. So like right when we were getting our groove, there's another vacation. And I was like, no, I'm paying you good money to keep these kids in school now. Stop. So it's like a totally different culture here. What that's done for me is unpacked, first of all, what's important. The French really put an emphasis on each other. Meals are long. Meals are delicious. Nothing's rushed in regards to that. I would have never experienced that beforehand. And so I think there's no way around the fact that sometimes God asks us to leave things and it's hard. And why should it not be hard? Yeah. The hardness of it should reveal something, and it surely does. And I'm sure it's unique for each person, but the hard part of leaving these things is definitely a excavation of what matters to us and what we worship, and I realized too, things I worshiped that I didn't realize I did. Not that I would ever use those words or even put them on anyone else. It's just that as the gap between us and them, things we watched, where we went, expanded, they just dissipated. And then all of a sudden I had this time back that I didn't have before. And I guess it's the parable that comes to mind is the man who finds a great treasure in the field. And so what does he do? He sells every single thing that he owns to have that treasure. That's awesome, Jesus, but super not. That's so hard. Like, what do you mean he sells everything that he owns? Like everything? Or just like a lot of things? because I can get on board with a lot of things, but if it's everything, I have some questions, So, but isn't the journey though? I think, Chase, like, is it not this walk with the Lord where we drop less things and pick up more His things?
Yes.
So
good.
Because one of the things we do, I think, and we have to stop this, is we almost idolize missionaries. These are real people. Okay. And the Lord's asked them to do something, but the Lord is asking something of you equally.
Right.
And this is humongous. This is huge. This dualism thing that we allow people to believe, where there's a sacred part of us in life and reality, and then there's this secular part of life and reality, to where, well, there's missionaries, and then there's people who work at Mel's Diner, and they're separate. One is a calling. One is a calling, and the other is not. Just show me that doesn't make any sense. But it's easy to let that slip in. And what we need to do, and I think this is to answer your question, maybe, I'm not presuming that a fact, but partly stuff that holds us back because we don't feel like we're worthy of that, or like, well, yeah, I hear that, Lord, but I need to get these things in order. And Jesus is like, well, you can let the dead bury their dead. I have something for you. Super harsh. That doesn't fit like you won't find that on at Limestone Bible Bookstore on the mug. Let the dead bury their dead. But Jesus says those things because he's very serious about, like, no, I have something for you that will blow your mind, and it's gonna be tough, and you have to leave things, but we don't even know some of the desires of our heart, and I have stumbled into them here, and I would have never ever seen them. But that doesn't make me any more or less than the 21-year-old who has no clue what to do with their life. We had these 24/7 prayer gatherings. We had one last weekend, and I was praying with a young girl. We were in a group. It was this young girl from Nigeria, and she just finished her master's here. You know what her question was with the Lord? What's next? And from the course of that prayer time, I had 3 shifts, and I heard at least one person in those 3 times say, Lord, what's next? One was, what's next about my job? What's next about my apartment situation, because they're moving back to Paris? And then another one. And so it was really in my mind, like this, what's next? And I wrote about it a little bit, and it was just this fear of the unknown that we have. But maybe I think that Christians are the only people who should not have fear of the unknown. Doesn't mean we can't be nervous, and doesn't mean we can't have fear of the unknown. It's just that we know that the Lord is already there. So It isn't fully unknown. It needs to be discovered. It needs to be walked through. His word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path, right? But have you ever put a lamp at your feet? It's not very bright. It's like 2 feet radius, or like, if you're living here, like a meter. But that's not like the mag light that you go out with your dad, who has more gear than Bear Grylls himself, like where you shine a flashlight and it's daytime now, and all the animals are like, wake up. It's not that type of light. And it won't ever be that type of light, I don't think. And at least I haven't experienced that in my life. You and I can sit here all day with hindsight 2020 and talk about ourselves as youth pastors and how this and that. But at the time we were just trying to work it out, totally. And by the grace of God, beauty came from it. But I think when it comes to leaving our stuff, what a wonderful grace that we are given to even do that. Because Jesus is trying to say, you do realize all of that stuff will be gone, and you don't even care at all about it. So what does it say about your heart that you do care now? And let's work that out. Let's talk about it. And it doesn't matter if you get on a plane, you go to France, or if you decide, you know what, I'm going to start working at my job for the glory of God. Jesus he's going to do that. He's going to do some great work, and Yeah, I don't know. I went on a monologue there, but
No,
I
so good.
think we glorify sometimes like the wrong things. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man, these missionaries, they're giving it all away. And I get that. I do. I see that. And it's tough, but I think those choices are in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And the Lord is in both.
Yeah.
And so if you're to answer your question, if there's someone you feel like, oh, the Lord has said that stuff to me, well, just get real with that, and all right, Lord, I haven't forgotten. I know you haven't forgotten. How can I start down that journey? And when I hear that story, Lord, about selling everything I own and like buying it, that's really intimidating. I don't know what to do about that. So at least I'm just going to start talking about this,
Yeah.
and knowing that the Lord He's going to show you some of the things that you desire. You don't even realize it yet. And those things are going to make you so happy. But there's only so much room in a heart. There's only so much room,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true for me, man. I've had to let go of so much more than I've picked up in order to experience the things God has for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. I yeah, it's so true. So many different layers there. Um you mentioned in that there a moment just about the 24-hour prayer thing
Hmm.
that's been started, and as you're getting ready to step into like this nonprofit coffee shop. Um so a couple questions about that, or just more so like just a snapshot, if you will, even kind of how what is that? How did it get started? But also, I think the thing that I'm really interested in talking about on a personal level too is just this thing around prayer,
Mm.
because for me personally, like sense of converse. Well, in January 2022, I began to meet with a group of older Christians who have been there, done that, seen a lot of things, and they're in their 70s and 80s, and they want to invest in young pastors. I got invited to just come to a monthly prayer lunch, 11 to 1 on every third or fourth Monday, whatever it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's been awesome. So that was January 2022, right? I started going, and, it was a little bit like, okay, what are we doing here? I do know some of them, and so I trusted them, but I also was like, are we gonna pray for 2 hours? Like, I got a lot of things to
For
get
sure.
to
Yeah.
do. I mean, Mondays, I'm already kind of just mentally, emotionally recovering a little bit still from
Mm.
Sunday. And, I mean,
Yeah.
I go up to the pinnacle of the spiritual, like, adrenaline on Sunday and come down
Hmm.
pretty hard once it's all done. So to get a revamp of that into a prayer time just feels like it's unnecessary. That was part of, um,
That's great.
but over the course of the year, I begin to see that these men and women have arrived at something. And that is over the course of their 40, 50 years of following Jesus, ministries, crazy miracles, pastors come and go. They've been pastors, they've been missionaries, all these different things, that what they're sitting with right now in their late years of life is prayer. And that's what they're most excited about. And that's what they want more of. And that's what they think is making the most impact in their life and will make the most impact in the kingdom. And so I began to pick up on this differently and just go, what is this here?
Yeah.
You're not talking about a ministry strategy that you loved from 30 years ago. You're not talking about even a book that you read that changed your life. You're sitting here going like, we want more of God, and we need to pray. And so something happened. A seed began to get deposited in January. So then I had this conversation with you to check in and just really connect and see how things are going with where you guys are, and
Yeah.
hear more about this thing I saw you guys communicate
Yeah.
with the coffee thing. And you started just to share about this stuff with prayer that God had just been stirring up in you. And so my ears perked up a little bit, and because of where I had been a little bit this year. But it was really that conversation that turned a corner for me to go, okay, God, you're definitely doing something that isn't it's not something I can keep on the back burner or the back shelf for. It actually has to come more front and center, and I actually need to be pursuing you more consistently with what are you wanting to do in me, and then what are you wanting to do through me, in my ministry, my church, whatever, in this season with prayer.
That's
And
cool.
so that's part of why I want to talk about it personally, just because we haven't had a chance to follow up yet, and this is somewhat of that. But will you dive into that a little bit? So what is this coffee shop? with, besides it being a nonprofit, why did you see this prayer, 24-hour prayer thing? Just tell me a little bit more about it and the heartbeat behind it and what's going on.
I'll start personally. Before we came, and it even ties into the last one, when we realized that what it was going to take to come here, there's definitely a season of grieving that, it's all cool until you do it.
Yeah.
It's like such a cool idea. And then the day that we were supposed to announce to our church that we were leaving was the first day that COVID closed our doors.
Jeez.
So then it was delayed till like October. Yeah. And then we did. And then now we were trying to fundraise in COVID and nobody's open. Literally, like, as we made phone calls and emails, they're like, yeah, we're not open right now. Like, okay, cool, but can help. So, like,
can I jump on your Zoom meeting with your church? And
like,
I
hear you that you're not open, but like, can you money help, money. So anyway, like, super discouraging and like scary. That's more, not discouraging. I was super scared. Like, whoa. So I felt like the Lord said a few things to me, because I reached out to when I left, I set up like a board, basically, and I asked a group of people to oversee us as we did this process. I didn't want to be left out in the cold, and I had never been a part of a season thus far where I didn't have people in authority on some level over me. So I asked some peers, and I asked some pastors, and I asked just some friends that I could check in with monthly and to hold me accountable. So as we did that, I felt like the Lord said a few things to me. 3. One was that I was going to have to get out of the driver's seat of my life, which I don't even have a passenger seat when it comes to my life. Like, it's me. And then 2, that I was going to have to ask for help, which a lot of times for me, I don't ask for help. It's like a sign of weakness, or like, I don't need your help. Or sometimes, truthfully, like, I just don't think I need your help.
Sure.
I got it.
Sure.
I'm not trying to be cool at all. I'm like, no, I got this. Solid. And then the third one was that whatever was coming for us ministry-wise was going to revolve around prayer. Now, I mean, I've been in ministry since I was a kid, so it's not like I didn't pray. But I knew that it was something else. Like, it was something else, but I don't think I knew exactly what. And still discovering that now. But so I felt like the one thing that I could do that was most proactive about that was like asking people for help. So I did. Asked a lot of people for help. And it was a humbling experience, which I think was the whole point. And it was beautiful because so many people helped. It was very cool. So then we get here to France, fast forward, and we're here. And so now we're starting to do stuff. And I totally forgot about the 3 things that the Lord had spoken to me. I kind of felt like those 3 things were for the season of getting us here. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like, if you do these 3 things, then trust me, you're going to get to France.
Yep.
So then we get to France, and now I'm back on the driver's seat, and I'm skipping gears because I've been itching, to
get there,
to get back to work. And I think probably like 6 months in, I realized in my frustration, I was frustrated and not knowing what I was frustrated about. And the Lord said, like, I never said that those things were done. And quite frankly, I think that those things might be forever. And I realized that. I don't remember where I was when I realized that, or maybe if it was like just a time. I shared about that with my wife. And so that just kind of started doing some unpacking again. Like, I don't want to do the same things I've always done. And so the prayer thing is what kind of came to the surface. And in that process of talking, the reason why I said I set up some people is one of those people, her name is Marla. She got me kind of on some spiritual formation track of just looking at spiritual formation, Henry Nouwen and some of these thinkers in this way, Christian mysticism, like a contemplative
Yes.
type of vibe. And man, I was just drinking that up. I mean, I was just feeling so enriched by that. And I came across a few books, but like kind of my mind opened up to in Christian history, the two main veins, if you will, that you hear most about is like the Roman Catholic vein and the Protestant vein in the Reformation. Those are like the two big ones, and we get a lot of airtime to those. But during that same century, like in Ireland, there's a whole different world happening through St. Patrick and the church that takes place in Ireland. And I kind of stumbled into that through some of those books and authors, and it was just like, whoa, wow. Like there's more than just the Catholic and the Protestant kind of perspective. Not that those are bad. This is a totally different one.
Yeah.
And what really struck me was how he spoke about prayer, contemplative, imaginary, using our imagination, just really free and loose and open and not so rigid, and praying all the time, being just kind of a person of prayer. And so I started to really get after that, which led me eventually to discover 24/7 prayer as the movement. And I was handed a book, Red Moon Rising, and a book called Dirty Glory. And so I really enjoyed those. And during that time, I met a woman who was at our church, and she told me that she used to have a coffee shop downtown. And I was like, cool. Good for you. Awesome. Because she didn't have it anymore. It's like she rents it out to some person who sells clothes. And in France, if you're on a lease, you sign a 3, 6, or 9-year lease. And they were on like a 9-year lease, I think. So I was just like, cool story. Like, thank you for sharing. And then a few months later, she called me and she's like, that person wants out. Would you like this building? It's like, wow. Sure. I need to think about that, pray about that. I mean, that's not a part of the plan. I'd never shared like some idea about having a coffee shop ever. So then we talked about it, prayed about it, asked some of those same people. It just kind of seemed like a God opportunity to go and potentially have it as a second base, because in France, like there's just like 1% of the population would consider themselves an evangelical Christian. 1%. Oh. And then people don't come to church in the same way. It's a cult. It's actually a cult here to be a Christian, go to church and be considered a cult. A little bit differently in the way that we say that word back in the States, but relatively close. So when I have told people, like, I'm at a church, like, oh wow, like they're still doing that, like with total sincerity,
right?
Not trying to be rude. They had no idea that those things were still happening. I've talked with young people who are leaning up against this old church building, and I asked them, do you know what this is? And they have not even the slightest clue. So it's just a different environment here. And yet a coffee shop, is like a watering hole, for a lot of people. And so I was like, maybe, okay, Lord, if you're into this. And then I decided, I heard of that 24/7 prayer was having a conference in Ireland. And I've always wanted to go to Ireland anyway. And so I went by myself, which was weird. I've never gone to a conference by myself, let alone fly to a conference by myself. But the thing is here, Chase, like that flight was like maybe €100, 120 there and back, because I'm so close. So I still have this mindset.
Okay, yeah.
Being in the States, I went there and back. It was stupid. So anyway, when I was there, it was like, the way that I expressed it was, I had found like my tribe of people. Like they were saying all the things that I have kind of felt over the years, even that I tried to express in Thoughts of a Dying Worship Leader, like this idea that we come up to the edge and we're good with the edge, and then we preach about the edge, we gather people at the edge, and then right in front of us is this massively deep abyss of who God is, but we're satisfied with the edge. And I can't stand that, like I hate that, it frustrates me. And I wasn't sure how to get past it, like, what do I do? And prayer, I think, was the thing that the Lord has, always had in front of us, that we make very small. And just the leaders and people at 24/7 Prayer, they just do a really good job of resourcing people and pushing people towards prayer. I highly recommend anybody going on 247prayer.org. There's tons of resources on there. And so anyway, I was there and I was just loving it, man. And you can still go and listen to the
sessions,
to the conference sessions online, and they're fantastic. But in there, I sat down, there was all these representatives going up there, 24/7 Prayer South Africa, 24/7 Prayer Peru, so on and so forth, all around the world. So I went up to somebody with a lanyard afterwards, and I was like, can you tell me who 24/7 Prayer France is? I want to meet them. I just want to tell them that we're in Grenoble, and we've done, at this point, we had done one 24-hour prayer gathering. And I was like, and we kind of feel like we want to do these. And he's like, well, there is no one. You should talk to this guy, Brian, they said. And I was like, well, I don't know anyone. So pretend I'm off the street. Who's Brian? I don't know anything. And they're like, oh, and he pointed, it was this guy. And it was basically like the guy who was running the whole conference. So I was like, no, thanks. I'm not going to do that, because, like when you go to a conference and then when people come off the stage and they have that circle around them.
Yeah.
That's that guy. And so I was already like, nope, not going to do that. So thank you. So then I went back to the hotel, or that evening I felt like the Lord was like, so you're going to come all this way and not like do that. I'm like, oh, you're going to come on. Anyway. So I did the thing I hate the most. So the next day at the conference, I resolve in my mind to go and talk to this guy. But sure enough, he comes off the stage and there's like 10 people around him and they're all talking. And so I'm doing that thing where I'm like 10 feet away from that circle, just waiting and kind of hovering around. And like he sees me, I see him, but he really can't get away. I'm dying inside because I'm breaking a vow to myself, and I'm like that guy who's like hanging around and just want to talk to him. And I wait like 25 minutes of just doing this. Okay. So it was brutal. And like people are asking me to leave because they need to clean up the room. I'm that guy. I'm like, but I'm here to talk to him. Like, and they're like, does he know? And I'm like, no, like it doesn't, just, if you could just please, I'm really in pain. Just go away. I'm waiting. So anyway, he finally like makes his way over and I'm like, so sorry. I know you got places to be. I just want to introduce myself. He's like, Jordan, right? From France. And I was like, yeah, cool. He's like, yeah, I think his name was Jake or Jason. Jason told me about you. He's like, can we do coffee tomorrow? I was like, wow, like, yeah, I would love that. I'm here by myself. So he's like, cool. So tomorrow, the next day we meet up for coffee and he's like, I got 30 minutes. And I was like, I'm surprised we're having this. I mean, this guy's running the show here. But we stayed and talked for a good 45 minutes to an hour. And as I was talking with him, he's like, well, you've read Dirty Glory, right? Which is that book that I was, and I'm like, well, yeah. He's like, well, you know the guy Brian in the book. I'm like, he's like, that's me. That's my story. So pastor, left his stuff, goes to Ibiza, party like crazy place, opens up 24/7 prayer, crazy testimony. I highly suggest everybody could go read Dirty Glory. But
yeah, the name of the book again, what would you say it was?
Dirty Glory. Yeah, really great. And so we just kind of hit it off, and we've been talking on Zoom once a month, and we've been going after these prayer times. And the idea is not to like just have a prayer room, but to have a rhythm of prayer in your life. And you were even saying something earlier that triggered that thought of like these Sunday experiences, and then the drop off that we don't talk about.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't even have to be Monday. It's when you're leaving the parking lot.
Totally.
Right? And the cup is empty.
Right.
Like so done. And depending on how that day goes, it could be negative, like, because I know, this, I've left services in the back in the day and still do, but like, and they could be awesome, but just like something's up and I'm done, like I'm done. And what I have found that I have been missing with prayer is this idea of praying morning, noon, and night, and anchoring everything around these times has balanced out this equation to where, well, no, it's not balanced. It's balancing. I think it can be, and it helps with this of where like, I'm anchored in these times where I know I'm going to be with Jesus and get to talk and get to be together, and it's not routine, it's not scripted, but it's time that I've decided to anchor my life, which means if I'm praying from 12 to 12:05, right? And it's not about how long, let's say 12 to 12:15 or something. And someone asks me to do lunch, I say I can meet them at 12:30. So it's not like, okay, I'm going to move it. Yeah. I'm not moving anything for this. And what I have found, and it's been a struggle for me, but it's just really blessed my life. And instead of the big wave of awesome, it's more just like the tide is slowly getting higher. So yeah, it's not because if we're honest, sometimes those big waves of awesome are followed by a season of low, and we're like, we do a lot of stuff to ramp that thing back up. Yeah. It's so hard to keep that momentum. Yeah. Like there's not enough books in the world, right, to keep that going. And I'll end with this. I feel like the Lord said something to me about prayer that really kind of changed perspective for me. It was, Jordan, I want you to stop praying about what you're doing. And I want you to make prayer the thing you're doing, and I will show you what I'm already doing and let you be a part. So I always prayed about the things I was doing, right?
Say it again one more time.
Yeah. So I felt like the Lord said, Jordan, I want you to stop praying about the things you're doing and to start making prayer the thing that you're doing. And I will show you what I'm already doing, and I'll let you be a part. Yeah. And that changed some things for me, and still changing things for me. I don't have that unlocked by any means, because let's be honest. I mean, I 75% of the time in my life, why I went to prayer is because I had some things that were going on or that I was doing that I wanted to pray about. And so the idea, I think, has changed of I want to be a part of what God's already doing and let him show me that. And making prayer the thing that I do, I think, is what these old men or more seasoned men in your life have told you. Like, after all these years, they've kind of realized without prayer, potentially this is nothing, you know. And apart from me, as it says in John 15, you can do nothing. So I've tried to do that my best. And to be honest with you, it's a dangerous thing to do, because you start realizing how strongly you are tied to the way you think church should be, right? The way you think you should do things, right? And I've, that's been unpacked in me a little bit. But one thing has changed in me is a heart for lost. I would say, I love people at Refuge Church. I care about them greatly, but the more time you spend praying, the more everybody outside your church is also going to come into focus, and because it is the heart of the Lord, like it really is. It truly is. So we're excited to be pursuing the coffee shop. There's prayer happening in that place every week on some level. And my thought and dream and hope would be that would make a difference. Yeah. Like just that. Like think about that. Do we believe that prayer if it's the thing we did, I'm not saying we aren't still the hands and feet of Christ. Of course. But do I believe prayer enough to where I believe that it will work on its own? To where I'm just going to pray consistently and diligently with people, by myself, and watch. That's the challenge I think that the Lord's put in front of me, and I'm stepping into that. It's no formula. It's not a formula.
Right.
It's real, and
Yeah.
It's been cool.
Yeah. That comment about how you have a morning, noon, or lunch, and then evening 3 times a day anchoring points is really challenging, because there's like devotionals around concepts like that, or
Yeah,
but
totally.
like to really lean in and go, no, whatever. I'm gonna actually make this a part of my daily rhythm and even schedule it in to where whatever gets scheduled in addition to that has to move around it is super interesting to think about. And then the comment you made about need, like praying for needs, 70-80% of the time, I can agree with that. I'm with that. I resonate with that. Like even coming into that group when I'm there with these, older seasoned followers of Jesus, like it was uncomfortable for a lot of those times because I just felt like, let's talk about, or impart some wisdom, like, do something like, yeah. And, that's where they had been. But I just recently finished a time of prayer and fasting, and it was a progressive fast. So basically the way we've done it, I mean, we did it together as a church, but the Lord spoke a couple of things specifically that he wanted me to do along with it. But it was progressive, started like, somewhere around it, taking, adding more water and eliminating sugar. And then it was like a meal a day, and it was like Daniel fast. And then progressively got more and more to like consider fasting food, and the Lord was really clear about doing a total, like a water only. And I've never done a water only. I've done liquid onlys, and still always had coffee because I always felt like the Lord would never ask me to give coffee up because I would be a terrible human being to everybody. And
That's funny.
I've had 3 to 4 cups of coffee a day since I was 15. So just
What? Dude,
I,
you need to get out of Washington, bro.
yeah, easily. So anyway, but here's what ended up happening. So over that first 15 days of the fast, it had felt like there definitely was a greater connection just to being more the clarity of God's voice, and the moments where I'm like I needed to talk to him, or I wanted to pray, and it was always to ask about something in what I'm doing or whatever. And it was like the way I could paint it is like a phone call. There was like and there was no like a waiting on hold. There wasn't like who's going to respond, or is it going to be some whatever. It was like I knew I could pick up my phone and call him, and he'd answer, and we'd talk. I could talk to him, he'd talk to me, but then it would end. And the phone call would end, and it was contained within that moment of the phone call. It still was more than where I had been, and that kind of progressed over those days. A couple more phone calls a day, as I would pray. But it would be like okay, shoot, someone needs this. Okay, God, can I pray and talk to you? When I went into the 4 days of water only fasting, something shifted, and I didn't really know what was going to happen. I honestly just didn't think I was going to be able to do it on a practical level. I just thought there's just no way. There's no way I could. Yeah, it is. And but after the first day, when I woke up day 2, as I was spending time with the Lord in the morning, I began to see a transition from phone call to the best way I could paint the picture is like we were on a walk together, and it was like we were with each other on a walk, a physical walk in person, out in nature or the woods or on the sidewalk in a city. And it was like he wasn't a phone call away. He was literally I turned my head a little bit over and just talk as we're walking, and we were doing it together. So it wasn't like he was in my environment. He knew we were together with where we were going, and so it wasn't like I called him because I needed something. It was more so I was talking to him because I was just with him.
Yeah.
And so it had just begun to shift a paradigm of prayer for me, because I began to look forward to those times of prayer so much less of, okay, I know these are the things I need or we need to figure out or problems I'm having, to like just being with you on a walk. and the closeness was palpable. Like, and I know he's always close like that, but I just haven't recognized it.
For
Uh,
sure.
and so, and I just got a taste of that over those 4 days, and am like so excited and looking forward to how the Lord wants that kind of understanding and practice of a life of prayer to begin to be cultivated more in my life, and then really in my church. And that's where I can see the thread from January 2022 of meeting with this group to the Zoom call with you a few months back, to even this call today. And I have the book. In fact, it should be, I had forgotten about it till like recently, but you'd recommended the Red
Red
Moon
Moon Rising.
Rising. I
My
didn't
favorite
hear,
part about that is when you asked me, you thought it was, your first guess was Red Dawn. And I almost let that go. Like, yeah, dude, it's called Red Dawn. First, before you read it, see the movie. It's going to bless your life. But I didn't. I felt like that would be a mistake.
But I haven't read it, but it should be here in like a day or two. But excited to press into that more because there's something that God is saying like I'm totally want to do it in you first, because it's not one of those things that I want to be like, oh,
Yeah.
my church needs to do this, and like it's not real in my life. But it's become more real in my life over these days, and God's also said to me, because of my fear of like, I don't want to be an imposter here. Like, I'm not trying to like, I have to make it fully real for me completely. I got to be doing this like for months before I can introduce whatever it is to the church. And I also had the Lord be like, yo, chill on that. Don't miss what I want to do in other people, because you're not there yet. You can begin to lead them into this place as you're going there, but don't think you got to get to some level of this before you can begin to take people along on the journey. So I'm walking out that with him over this next season. But I know without a shadow of a doubt, the Lord is saying something about how in our church over this next year and beyond, he wants us to have a more active part of what, have prayer be more front and center around who we are, how
I
we
love it.
live. But then also like some of this stuff that you've been mentioning about that, a 24/1, or how, I don't know
Yeah. Yeah.
how you guys are
24/1.
doing it, where you literally have a 24-hour period, consecutively, people coming into that coffee shop. I think that's where you guys have had it yet, or
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and
3.
taking shifts of praying. And I feel like I can see this place. In fact, I want this place. I'm here in it right now, recording this. So I'm motioning with people watching the video, which is low odds they are at this point, because YouTube analytics and everything else say people don't watch this long. But you know what? I'm giving it to them anyway. They're listening. Here at the church, this is a place that is not just Sunday operations, where God's presence is, switches on, but that there throughout the week, this can become a place of more active, intentional prayer.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that the Lord has been lighting up in me, and I don't really know what He has in store or what it's going to look like, but
Yeah. It's the best.
I can't deny it, that
Yeah.
this thing of prayer is going to be a pretty significant part.
I love it. I think too, fasting is one of those things. My wife said something really profound to me the last time we did a fast. We just finished one as well, but the one we did before that, she said, she felt really good. And she said, the reason why I felt really good on this one is because I had learned to feed on God's word before the fast. And usually in the past, it's like we do a fast and then we start going after God. But actually, I think fasting is at its best when you're feeding on the Lord before it.
It's
And
good.
then you go into a fast and you realize, oh wow, I'm actually more nourished by Him than I am food. Like, don't get me wrong for 1 second. When I'm hungry, it's an ugly thing. Okay, I'm a sad example. But my wife, when she said that, I was like, that's it. That is true.
So good.
And the issue with fasting, and then I think with prayer, and then some of the things you're speaking to, is something that's, we just don't even talk about it. And I don't know if I've ever heard anybody talk to me about it really, that I've been thinking about a lot. And it's what I've been shared that with you, what I'm writing now, like that is about the soul. We don't give much airtime or even thoughts to our soul at all. We think of soul care in the culture that we live in. Soul care is like when you buy things for yourself, or like you take a day at the spa. Self-care and soul care, I think, kind of get
Right. Interchange.
together. But they're not the same. And I honestly think this is a really wonderful question to ask people who aren't on where you are in the journey of faith or would say that, is just ask them if they believe if they have a soul. If the answer is yes, it opens up a whole wide variety of conversation about life in general, because Jesus talks about the soul so much. And one thing I in the Celtic Christianity, you know, they locked in on the soul care and this idea that like that where it says, you know, as the deer pants for the water, so my soul longeth after thee. This is a scripture I'm sure you love so much because you shoot deers with arrows and things, you know what I'm saying? So you're like, you see a deer panting for the water and you're like, oh, that reminds me of Christ.
Perfect. He's distracted.
Perfect. He's thinking of death will find you. Jerky time. Anyway.
Your death is bringing me life. So that's all
But this idea of like thinking of your soul in that way, like as the deer pants for the water, so my soul longeth after thee. And then thinking about how easily spooked a deer is. Okay, so like one crack of a branch, they're gone. I mean, gone. And I do think that is an image of our soul. It does not come out unless it is safe and space and a place where it's is going to be nourished, and we do not take any time for that. There's no soul care at our job. There's no soul care. Can we be honest? Sometimes, like, there's not even that opportunity at church. Church is filled with things, good things, but a deer does not share space very well, and neither does our soul. And I think it is a great image in Scripture to think about. And so then you do a fast, right? And you've cleared some serious space. Probably you've blocked out some time, hopefully, to be quiet. And then all of a sudden you start having these thoughts of like, whoa, like I think the Lord's saying this to me. That's because the Lord speaks to our soul. And we just don't understand that fully. And not saying I do. We as humans, we as believers, we don't realize that. And so then we go these and we call them seasons or of this and that. But shoot, I mean, just one of the super practical things about setting up times of prayer, which is new to me, but I'm just saying that I've been humbled by and challenged by, is my soul comes out. It does. And all of a sudden I feel differently about things. I sense things differently. And I think if you, and I kind of think that our soul is our sixth sense in a way, where it resonates with things that the Lord puts in front of us. That sometimes it's the same way where you're on a hike with the Lord or you're on a walk with the Lord and you see something beautiful. Your eyes see that it's beautiful, but your soul is what connects it back to the Maker. You know, it's like this.
Yeah,
it's like, this is more than what I'm just seeing. This is your soul is resonating with something that was designed for your soul to resonate with. And I think prayer, contemplative prayer, just taking time to be quiet, taking time of solitude, taking time where your prayers literally you're saying nothing, is reforging the space for your soul to come out. And I think most of us go through our life and we play cleanup with our soul. We really do some soul care when the soul is damaged, and then we ignore it for the rest of the time. And I think that's been a journey for me of realizing this is preemptive work for my soul, these times of prayer. And two, there's nothing wrong with praying for needs. The Lord gives us a perfect recipe. If you're struggling with prayer, I think the best place to go is to the Lord's Prayer, because it's wonderful and it gives you a launching pad for other things. So the reason why the disciples were Jewish guys, they knew how to pray. They're very well trained as young boys, and they're versed in Jewish tradition. So the issue is not that they don't know how to pray. They do. Right. It's just that when they heard Jesus pray, they're like, oh shoot, I don't know how to pray like that. So they ask, can you teach us how to pray? Because we're not doing the same thing. We've all experienced that, like being around people and they're doing something better than you, or something that resonates. And so then he says, okay, say, our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. All these things are wonderful. There's a prayer in there eventually where you get to ask for things and your needs, but it starts with a recognition of who you're praying to. That alone will take a lot of time.
Right.
That alone is going to, can you say that? Can you genuinely say, our Father? Like, is that who he is for you? That's a challenge. What if you grew up with a dad who was abusive?
Right.
What if you grew up with no father? What if you just don't understand that? Well, there's the work to be done, and then later on in Matthew, he's going to be like, why do you see the birds worrying about what they're going to eat, or the flowers? But then he goes on to say, seek first the kingdom, so he knows the desires of our heart that we don't know. And he has given us ways to experience that. But I think we live in a world that does not promote soul care. I wrote this in this book I'm working on, but my wife and I, we went to the Louvre together. It's a massive museum in Paris. It's just amazing. Yeah. We went there some years ago, and she bought these early bird tickets, and so it got us in I don't know, probably only 15, 30 minutes before everyone else. But we felt awesome. We felt better than all of the peasants in the other line. We were like, move along. Anyway, so we got in. We're in line. We realized we didn't have a plan. We just had these early bird tickets, but we didn't know anything about the Louvre. I just wanted to see the Mona Lisa. I wanted to see that. Yeah. So we're like, okay, we're just going to book it. When we get in there, we're going to go straight to the Mona Lisa. We're going to beat all of these people, and we're going to get some time there by ourselves. So I'm pretty sure, obviously we didn't run, but when the gates opened, we did that speed walk, looking awesome. We looked ridiculous, I'm sure, but we get to this massive room. It's like basketball court size space. And in the very center of the room is the Mona Lisa. Okay. And then around everywhere else is other Da Vinci, other amazing things. But in the middle of the room is the Mona Lisa, which is literally the size of a poster.
Yeah, it's not that big.
Oh, what? So
it's not that big.
And it's just me, Vanessa, and the Mona Lisa and the security guy for about 5 minutes.
Wow.
And we're looking at it, and it's cool. I mean, it was great to be there. Then the flood starts coming in, and they're all taking selfies. And I have a selfie of all the people with the selfies taking on the Mona Lisas. It was mayhem. So then we start walking around the room, and it's tons of people, and everybody's scurrying. And the French friends we have, they've told us you need 3 days to see the Louvre. And we were like, we're going to see this bad boy in a few hours. And they're like, this is why we don't like you Americans. You're annoying. And they're right. I mean, we didn't even get to half because, it's just amazing stuff in there. So anyway, as we're done with that room, there's floods of people kind of pouring out this door to the next exhibit. And we're kind of finding ourselves being pulled in that direction. And I noticed this woman, older lady in this beautiful kind of sequence dress. And she's sitting on this blue velvet bench, and she's sitting by herself in front of this massive tapestry. And I think it's a tapestry or a painting, just a big work of art. And she's just sitting there looking at it. And I don't know what it was about her that caught my eye. It was just that it just didn't match. So everybody's rolling, and Vanessa and I are making plans, and she's just planted, and she's just still and kind of smiling and just looking at this thing. She's probably in her 70s. And I just found myself thinking about this lady for the rest of that time. And then as I reflected back on there, and I feel like the Lord brought her into my mind to say, this are the two things happening at once here. Yeah. We are living in an incredible, incredible reality of so many things designed by an artist for us to notice him and to learn something about him. And there are people in this world who could see a Da Vinci and tell you if it's real. So they've invested so much time into learning his strokes, and I don't even know. He like types of paint and colors and how he would not use that brown because that brown wasn't available in this time period in his town of Italy, you know, like real things, because as they've studied his work, they've learned more about him. And we don't do that enough when it comes to this great artist. We are the early bird tickets. Let's get this as much as we can, and we'll appreciate the Mona Lisa. That was awesome. Moving on to the next thing.
Right.
And I think prayer and taking some time for the soul is like that lady. She's going to know something about that painting that I will never know.
Yeah.
But she's also decided, and this is where it's tough, to not do other things.
Yeah.
So she's not going to see even half of what I saw on that day. Right. She also doesn't care.
Right.
She wants to know about the artist of this thing. And I think so do I.
Yeah.
And so can you imagine the things that we're missing that the Lord is saying? Because let's take nature, for example. Do you like peaches?
Yes.
I love peaches, dude. I'm serious. If there was all the fruits in the world at their ripest point.
Right.
They're peach,
they're
dude.
Just perfect. Yeah.
A peach?
Hard to beat.
Woo, dude. Okay, a peach is unlike anything else. I like other things. Don't get me wrong. If you're listening out here and you're triggered by that, just, I don't care.
You really offended some nectarine lovers that are just like,
yeah,
no shout
What's
out.
a nectarine though? It's just an almost peach. Like, let's not go there. If you eat a peach, you get it off a tree of and it's like, it's amazing. You eat it, dripping down your face. It tastes so good. I've wondered why things taste good. Like if it were an evolutionary system, nourishment is the key. Taste is
right.
Why?
Secondary.
Don't eat it. Just need my belly box to be filled and I'm good. Give me the vitamins, solid. But the taste thing doesn't make sense because there's no need for it to taste good. There would be nothing. So, and yet it tastes so wonderful. And then, get this, after you eat the peach, if you go and take the seed, there's like this big hard thing in the middle of a peach. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
So one of the weirdest looking seeds out there.
Yeah.
But if you just go outside and then you dig a hole in the dirt, you just dig a hole in the ground. You follow me?
Yep.
You put the seed in there and just put the dirt back on top. It grows something that will give you hundreds and hundreds of those things.
Yeah. Right.
We're so impressed by the dumbest things. Okay. We're like, dude, my thermostat in my house is Wi-Fi controlled. Oh, dang. If you eat this peach and then you just put the seed inside of the ground, over time, it's going to give you something that will produce hundreds, if not, I don't know, how many more of those peaches. And you can do that same thing with all of them.
Right.
Follow me.
Yep.
So then Jesus comes along, and if this is your belief, Jesus says, he starts talking about fruit, and he's like, I want you to bear good fruit. A bad tree bears bad fruit, a good tree bears good fruit. This is he made this up.
Right.
So if we're on the bench with the lady looking at the peach, he made the peach. So now we're learning about the peach, but who are we really learning about? The artist, right? Yeah. So Christ. And he comes and says, yeah. Bear good fruit, because I've done this for you. So it's this whole like world available to us that we skip, right? That what is the peach a picture of? Well, of the artist, it has to be provision. It would have been enough for you to pick a peach, and one of those peaches on the tree has a seed. All of them have a seed. So it's not just that he wants to satisfy us, our bellies. So he wants to do this, but he made the whole thing up. I'm keep forgetting that. Like, he made the whole thing up. The best on-ramp, if you're listening and you're not a Christian or you don't consider yourself a religious person, just question whether or not you have a soul. If you think you have a soul, then the best on-ramp, I think, to finding Christ is just like awe and wonder. It's nuts. So this God of provision creates this thing that nourishes us, but also paints this picture of provision. It's crazy. And then he says, then he comes to his creation, points back to one of the things he made up for us and goes, bear good fruit for other people. Like, I want you to do this. Why, Chase? Because the tree doesn't bear fruit for itself. Right. It bears it for other people. And someone's going to come to Chase Merrell, and so many times they already have, and pick off you and eat it. And then at the end, they're going to have a seed, potentially, and go, man, that was good. These men that you've been eating from, you're like, something's up with that. And that seed's going to get planted. You used the word. You even used the language earlier. A seed was planted.
Yep.
That's the artist, dude. That whole thing is not, we didn't make that up. It's crazy. And so this idea of what is prayer, man, I just think it's creating a space for our soul to come out and experience some of these things.
Yeah.
And if we don't sit down on the blue velvet bench and ignore the call of everything else, we're going to miss it. And I think I've missed it. And I don't want to miss it anymore. Like, there's too much out there to see and to know from the Lord. And I've just been challenged by that. And so we're going to have, there's things, there's ministry, there's coffee shops. I mean, the coffee shop's cool, but not without the Lord. I mean, I think 10 years ago, if I would open up a coffee shop, I would think I was so cool. Dude, I'm so cool. Like, scoff. I'm cool because I'm doing it this different way, but that's stupid. The one thing we need is the Lord. And I think what resonates best with the Lord is our soul.
Yeah.
And we don't often fight for that space, because like a deer panteth for the water, so my soul longeth after you. If you want to take that illustration further, our souls are easily spooked. They don't like busyness. They don't like anxiety. They don't like a lot of things. There's going to have to be a place where they can come out and drink. Yeah. And so I think it's worth fighting for time.
Yeah.
I think I didn't make this up, this idea of praying morning, noon, and night, or whatever. It's not even about those three specific things. Just fighting for the space will make the other spaces come to life. I hope, I think, and I think that would be true for anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I'm glad you shared that last bit there. I'll be cheering on that for a while.
Yeah, me too.
Man, just wrapping up the conversation today, the way that I want to end is to, even as I listened and engaged in this conversation throughout the time we've been having it, I'm just reminded about how your life, like the world needs Jordan Abina, not because you're, you and I are in the scale and the sea of people that God has made. We do believe we have value and identity in him and all that, but like he also, next man up, can use anybody, all that. But I'm recognizing like the things that he's doing in you, is doing in you for this time in this world. We need it. So like you're on to something. I don't know the way to say it. God's been doing it and he's still doing it right now, and he has a lot more to do, but you're on to something, and just to encourage you in moments where you feel like, am I on to something, or is this you are somebody just listening to just some of the surface of this. It really does, it resonates a lot, and I'm super inspired and challenged by it. So just I hope today you even walk away encouraged, just knowing that there's books, conversations, moments you have with, people that you just meet in one-on-one interactions. There's just so much that God is gonna brew and doing it through you. So and man, the other piece that people don't know even through this conversation that I want to encourage you in this we wrap up too, is the husband and father that you are. The way that you're doing all of this, you're laying your life before the Lord and letting him use you, but all of it still is under, to some degree, or not even to some degree, under, like being a healthy dad and a healthy husband. Like you're not
trying.
And yeah, well, you're doing great. I mean, I remember Holly and I, when we were considering we were having our first trip to where we're going to be on a plane for more than 5 hours over a big, large body of water. And we had Weston, and we got I don't know if we met you in person or what it was, but we connected. We were like, who are the people for us if like we die on this plane and it's like Lost 2.0? Who are we gonna, really trust with our children? And it was like, we both knew. It wasn't even like I had to lobby for you guys and she had to. It was like, it's Jordan and Vanessa. The way that the way they love their kids and love Jesus purely and authentically, and they're normal. They're just all these things. And so I just want to say, man, like that, the fact that that's who you are too, and I'm super thankful for that, because you wouldn't be who you are as a leader in the thought space, in the writing space, in the ministry space, would mean nothing to me if your marriage and your kids if you weren't playing laser tag with your 12-year-old daughter and giving it your all, howling.
Which, by the way, I dominated.
I don't doubt it.
I dominated. I wasn't there to make friends. Seriously. Yeah. My literal name on the gun was Deathbringer. So, and every time they got shot, it said that they were killed by Deathbringer. I mean, it's not a joke. I don't mess around, but yeah. Well, I appreciate those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so man, thanks for making an impact on my life and continuing to do so. Excited to see, you've got two books. Actually, you have three, and then you're working on well, you have three. Two. No, you definitely have three. I have it. It's actually,
oh my gosh!
I don't know if I have it on this bookshelf, but it's still in my possession.
Limited edition.
Yeah. Yeah. And can't get it anymore. Right. That's why it's limited. But
that's for the best. Trust me.
But for people, I mean, and I haven't finished the second one, but Thoughts of a Dying Worship Leader was incredible. And just as a worship leader in person in ministry for years, I mean, it was so refreshing to read and get an opportunity to just digest it. And so that world, I mean, you're a prolific writer of thought and in song too, dude. God is stupid. It's honestly stupid, to be real with you. Just stop. So, but the books and the songs and all of that stuff, I mean, God's given you a real gift. But I'm thankful that you're using it for his glory, and you're not sitting on it, because it's impacting people that don't get the opportunity to sit with you and have coffee every day. And so keep writing, man, keep writing and keep putting it out there, because people need to be challenged and encouraged by it. And I didn't know you were writing this when you're writing now. I can't wait to read it. But for people, like, I mean, that both of those, the two that you have completed and they're out there, like, people, if they wanted to read or get it, they can go get it, like Amazon. It's still up there for people to be able to go get there. Yeah. Yeah. And I'll make sure to put all the links and stuff in the podcast description and stuff. But because it's worth getting, it's worth reading. It's really worth reading through slow and letting the thoughts challenge, and just excited to see.
When's my leadership book coming? When do I get to read the Chase Merrell leadership book?
Yeah, good question. Good question. I have a book I'm working on that I hope to release in 2024. And
2024, I'll be 100. Come on.
I'll be and part of why I had started it 2 years ago and stopped. And in fact, I'd love to talk to you about it sometime, just your journey, because I don't know how you're pumping out 3 books in the middle of all of this, and three books in 4 years, or 5 years.
No, it's very, very, very hard. And I'm the worst at it by far.
You're basically Craig Rochelle now. You need to chill out.
Yeah, right. I don't get those guys because they'll put on like the same post, like, I just finished my 150 book a month reading list, and then I just finished 2 books. I'm like, well, what happened? What? Like, what? Okay, I guess I'll just give up because I learned a new chord on the acoustic. Yeah. Yeah, that's stupid.
But
whatever. It's not a compare. Don't compare.
No,
I'm looking
I
forward
know.
to hearing your thoughts.
Yeah.
But to think that sitting down is writing something is easy is so hard.
Oh,
And every time I'm done, I'm like, congratulations, Jordan. You just confirmed my deepest fears that you're an idiot, and you wrote them down. It sucks.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. That's my hope. But man, thanks for joining me today. Thanks for just sharing your heart and your journey where you guys are at to get to watch you guys over this next year, continue with the coffee shop and the 24/7 prayer movement stuff, and just your family continue to blossom. The ministry God's called you to at Refuge Church, all of that in Grenoble, France. It's going to be cool to watch from afar. And any like specific, besides details in like the podcast notes, just ways people can follow and be engaged to stay connected, pray for you, support you, because there's definitely ways to support you guys too. And
yeah,
I'm sure people will listen to this and be like, I want to know more, and I'm loving what I'm hearing.
You can go to prayforfrance.com, and that's like a kind of like a home base for us. And then that'll give information too about the coffee shop.
Cool.
And then you could go to jordanabina.com too, and I post updates about all kinds of stuff there. So
yeah. Cool. Well, dude, love you. Appreciate you.
Too.
Thanks for making an impact on my life and joining me today for a great conversation. I've just been so blessed by it. So you're just one of my favorite human beings on the planet. So
well, I appreciate you too, Chase. Thank you for the invitation. Thanks for the blessing you've put on our life. Proud of you. Love seeing those pictures of your kids. And I think you're on your own journey, and it's going to really bless that church that you have wanted to lead for a long time, I know. So very cool. Proud of you, man.
Yeah.
Love Holly
thank
too.
You. Yeah, thank you. Well, with that, episode 6 wrapped up today. Thanks for listening. See you later.